Welcome to the Marvelle Edit podcast. I'm Jill Butler-Rennie, your host and Managing Director of Marvelle Events. In this series, we'll be taking a behind-the-scenes look at all types of events. Our guests come from roles in venues, specialist suppliers, entertainment, event management and production throughout the events supply chain. To find out more and hear our latest news, visit marvelleevents.com/Marvelle Edit. Today I'm joined by Ailsa Macintyre, who's an event manager at the P&G Live. Welcome, Ailsa. Thank you for coming along today.
Thank you so much.
So before we go any further into the detail, can you just give us a bit of an overview of your day-to-day job?
So as you say, I'm an event manager at P&G Live, which is a state-of-the-art venue on the outskirts of Aberdeen. As part of my job, I organise a range of different events and facilitate events for clients, from conferences, exhibitions, banquets to entertainment. So every day is very different, and the clients we work with are really, really different, from energy to charities to private events to government. So and all those clients bring with it different personalities as well. So every day is completely different, and we're not pigeonholed into doing one type of event. So you could be doing a conference one day, then an exhibition another day, or dinner. So it's a great place to work.
So just before we go into kind of event detail, let's just kind of wind back a little bit. How did you come? Like, what's your experience or your education that led you to this role?
It's quite a long story actually, and I think probably like a lot of people that get into events, it wasn't really, that was maybe not the plan. And I guess going right back to the start, turns out how long we've got, but when I was around about probably 16, 17, when blogging was a thing, I used to have a blog called Golden Ammo, and it was, I guess it was kind of photography, fashion, music. And I then kind of got more into the music, started writing about bands, and I kind of joke about it, but it really stemmed from this one poster I saw at this bar in Thurso for a band called the Imagineers, which were a 4-piece kind of indie rock band. And I was driving through Thurso and thought, I wonder who that band is. Because at the time I was really into that, like discovering new acts. So I did some research, found them, listened to their music, wrote about them on the blog. And then I used to write for another website called Sound Influx, doing like music reviews, attending gigs, interviewing bands. And then I used to work for a record label in London called Once Upon a Time Records, and used to do a music scout for them, which this is really when I was like 17. I don't think I was even 18 at the time, which thinking about it now is quite crazy. And then the Imagineers picked up that I wrote about them and got in touch and asked if I would sell merch at one of their gigs in Inverness. So I did that, did a few more like merch shifts for them and a few other bands, which I mean, it was in high school at the time, and I used to like put my spare clothes into my locker and go and sell merch at gigs like after school, which at the time I wouldn't say I was like bullied, but people used to, say, oh, you're such a hipster, and I guess people didn't really understand it. I did that for a few years, and then I kind of thought, when I was at that point where I was thinking about what I'm going to do, with my career, and I'd applied for like media and communications in Glasgow, and then discovered that actually, the music industry was a career, as a place you could work in, and thought, maybe I could do that. So I went to applied for Stowe College in Glasgow, which has a music business course there, which is quite a renowned like music business course. I guess in the UK, the lecturers are amazing. They have worked or work within the music industry. So, and I think when I applied for that, people at the time were like, oh, it's quite different. It wasn't really like a normal route.
It's not what you see as advertised.
Totally. No. I don't think a lot of people really understood it. My parents probably didn't. They were very much just like, do what makes you happy. But I guess like guidance teachers, were like, oh, that's, quite like left field. I did it, and I guess I did that for 2 years, then went straight into third year at UWS and did commercial music. Through that whole time I was working for DF Concerts. I started as a flyer just at gigs, then worked my way up and did box office shifts, then kind of helped with more like promoter rep shifts, and worked things like Tea in the Park. And then I was doing like freelance work on the side the whole time, and did things like the BBC, MTV, loads of different events. And then, kind of gave it all up for for about 7 months, went to Australia, then kind of took a different path when I came back. Did a few different things, guess in the creative industries. And then my husband got a job in Aberdeen. I always kind of thought like, oh, P&G Live would be an amazing place to work. You used to grow up going to like the AEC for gigs, and that's kind of how I am more today. But I've done loads of random things within that time. It wasn't a linear path, that's for sure.
So are you from Aberdeen?
No, I'm from or like the northeast, so like Murrayshire.
Okay.
And travelled around a little bit, but that's where my bases, my family are. So
So I first we first met, probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. I feel like it might have just been pre or post COVID when you were at the university.
Yeah, I worked at the university for 2 years,
So did you do events at the university?
Yeah, so I worked for Aberdeen University Students Association. So that was 2.5 years I was there, and it was a great experience. And I learned loads from that job, and it was obviously during the pandemic, so it was, I was planning all these like student balls and different types of events, and we had to totally pivot that and put everything online, which I learned loads of things from that experience. It wasn't ideal, but again, it's given me lots of experience for the job I'm in now, and just a really funny time. And actually, it kind of felt like a strange moment. Just last week, I was their event manager at PNGLI for their student ball, which I'd organised about like 5 years ago. So it was nice to see the team and be on the other side of it. So we met through that.
So in a previous life, I was a environmental and safety engineer. So I'm very risk averse. And one of the things that I am quite obsessive about in event management is risk management. And I always like to start with a bit of a risks and opportunities register at the start of a job, because there's nothing more scary than events when they go wrong. I think, I've had to travel the world in an oil and gas job, and being in helicopters and being turned upside down and being in some really tricky places where you have to do rolls to escape bombs and
rather
all this.
you than me.
But there is nothing scarier than when one tiny thing goes wrong in an event, and it escalates a bit like a safety event on a process site, and it escalates so quickly. But I think the difference and what makes it so scary is it's so time dependent. If I was writing a technical report or whatever, if I was a day late, the world doesn't end. Or if you're 5 or 10 minutes late, it's somebody's event who that just doesn't happen as you'd planned. So that's why I think experiences from different industries can all come together. Don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say about like people being like late. I remember one event I did, a festival, and I guess I was an artist liaison, and part of that job is you have to get that band to the stage. And this was maybe like there's like 10 piece band plus like their touring party, and I've got somebody in my ear saying, oh, get that person to the stage, like you have to get them like 10 minutes before, but this band did not want to move, and so it's funny, I've done things like that, and then it works now into what I do, like when I do dinners and getting the band to that stage or the speakers. So I think wherever you do an event, they all kind of pieces together and you learn things from it, whatever, industry.
And you take something from every single event that you do into the next one.
And you're always going to make mistakes. And I learn things all the time. And one thing I always talk about, if you're not sure of something, always ask and never promise anything. I did an event, it was like an MTV EMA Awards, and the artist that I was looking after had asked for a specific water. And I was like, yeah, of course, no problem, I'll get that water. And then went back to the production office, and there's none of that water in Glasgow, all being used for the other stage. And then you have to, that'd be that person that's like, oh, I'm so sorry. even you asked me last week, could the venue staff maybe help take the chair covers off? And part of me wants to be like, yeah, of course, but I'm like, no, I have to check.
For sure. So, you had some huge events at P&G Alive, and obviously we work quite closely together on a number of things. What's the biggest event that you have there?
I guess offshore Europe, that. It's been a huge event. I don't know how long in Aberdeen now.
Forever. Before my time.
Yeah, I've only done 2 now, which obviously used to be the ACC. And I think people think that's why the P&G Live was built. And it wasn't the main reason, but obviously that does help. But it's a huge undertaking, that event there. The car park downstairs is, the infrastructure is completely overhauled in that space, and it's made into an exhibition. So it takes over the whole venue, from even the suites that we use for hospitality to become like meeting rooms as well. It's and it's for the event, for the team as well. It's split up, divided into different areas. So I did like traffic management one year, which was kind of new to me, and something really, really interesting. And people look after the conference spaces and the exhibitions. So we all take a part in it, and it's I guess next year would be the next one. I wouldn't say it's completely being planned at the moment. From, I guess, the organiser's point of view, there'll be a lot going on. Probably hits us maybe in like 6 months' time, 4 or 5 months' time. We'll start picking it up. But that's the biggest one of the year.
Unfortunately, it's only 2 years.
Every 2 years.
So I organised I organised a really nice event for one of my industry clients last year. So we wanted to do something to recognise offshore Europe, but trying to figure out something a little bit different. So we ended up hiring a function suite in Hilton Tecker.
Yeah.
So it meant that people could come out of the exhibition, just pop along the corridor, have a lunch and learn with us, and then pop back to the event. And I didn't really appreciate like the value of having the Hilton next door, but it was just so perfect how it all worked out.
And I think, I guess as part of that as well, offshore Europe, it brings so much to our venue, of course, obviously, but to the region as well.
For sure.
I don't know how many thousands of people it brings to Aberdeen, but, it's a substantial amount, and people are staying in the hotels, they're eating out, they're having these like side events, like you're obviously mentioning, in the city, out with the city. People, obviously travel quite far, and they'll, do like day trips to different places as well while they're in Scotland. So, these events, bring a lot to the economy. And I guess it's actually worth saying, I don't think people necessarily realise, but with these kind of events as well, sometimes a council will have to put money into it, to attract it as well. I think people just think, oh, we should have this event, we should have this, we should have this. But, the council need the infrastructure to be able to support that and help bring it as well. And give money to that organiser to help bring it to Aberdeen.
Yeah, I was actually just reading last week the Visit Scotland event strategy. Yeah. And if you see how much money events as a whole bring into Scotland is absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, that's everything from a small meeting through to things like offshore Europe. But there is a massive supply chain behind all of this.
Totally. And I guess we're the venue's working with Visit Scotland and Event Scotland. They have been for a little while now, and will be for the future, because we've got the Scottish Rally. I can't remember the official name next year, which is really exciting. And that's a piece that Rob and the team from the venue have been working on with them. So it just shows you how these groups can come together to make these things happen, which is really exciting. And the venue is going to be used as a kind of hub for media and like pit stops for the cars.
Nice.
We're hoping to have like a fan zone and like activities within that and events. So it's really exciting. That's next year. So really looking forward to that. It's different.
So what's your favourite event that you've worked on?
It's really hard to pick, and I don't want clients to
there's no favouritism, but it could be a favourite for a number of reasons, couldn't it?
My favourite one is probably a funny one, because I was working for the venue, but I was kind of more loaned to the client, kind of more production side, and that was Battle of the Brits, which we had must have been about 3 years ago now, which was a tennis event that was organised by Jamie Murray and a lady called Mary Greenham, who works in the tennis space. And it was a kind of Scotland versus England tennis event. It was fantastic. It was so much fun, and it was fun to be at the venue, but on the other side, kind of working with Mary and supporting her and what they needed. And I would love for more things like that. It was, fantastic event. And I think we kind of hoped it would come back. And I mean, maybe never say never, but it was, for me, probably my favourite event.
What's your kind of like event horror? What's the worst thing that can happen? Whether it's like actually realised or just something in your head that you always dread? Not that I'm wanting to preempt.
I guess there's the more frivolous, maybe not frivolous, that's not the word, but your band not turning up. Or I did have one once where the table linen was completely the wrong colour and all the tables were set. So there's things like that do happen. Or one thing actually is we start really early shifts. Sometimes we have to be sometimes at the venue for like 6:30 to brief security, and I'm always terrified my alarm doesn't go off when I wake up and then nobody's there to brief the security and then the doors don't open. So things like that. But I guess more on like a serious note, as part of the team, we do, as you mentioned, loads of different risk assessments, and we have to really think about the demographic of the people that are coming to the event. When you have a concert, you can have 10,000 participant people in the building at one time, and although you have a team in the control room and a support network, and a lot of that's on your shoulders. You've planned the event, and you have to take these things in consideration. And we do crisis management courses, and we have to you think about these things. Something was to go wrong. What happened in Manchester 10 years ago now or something, is so horrible, and you can't think about it too much because you'd never go to work. But these things obviously do happen. So I guess that is the worst case scenario, something like that happening. And even on a small scale, people getting hurt. We do a lot of things on like crowd dynamics and how the crowd moves, the demographic of that event changes. So we have to think about these things. Getting that wrong and making a mistake where something serious could go wrong is probably the worst nightmare, I'd say.
So, I mean, the worst thing that happens to me is like I've got not enough napkins or something like that. I do think that people look at event management as really, you need a clipboard and a walkie-talkie.
I know it's.
And whilst those things are useful, I mean, it's not anything like that. In the most part, you're in the trenches, solving problems and working out a plan Z, not even a B or a Z, a B or a C. It's Z, literally. because as I was saying earlier, like the escalation potential is just
totally huge. Yeah. We do these big tabletop exercises at least once a year where a company from down south comes in and we like drill different scenarios, and it's it can be quite fun in the moment and you're pretending to be different people.
Yeah.
But it's also scary that these things do happen. And I've been in situations before where, I did a festival, and it was one of my first festivals I ever worked on, where there was a bomb threat, and I was really young at the time, and I didn't really know what was going on when I went into this room. It was kind of like, oh, like what's going on? And then when I figured out, I was like, whoa, like, geez. But people were so calm and controlled, and they were the best people in the business
because they'd had the training.
Yeah, because they'd had the training, and they've obviously been through this. Because these things do happen, and I think being exposed to that quite young, and from an early starting in the industry, I think it has put me in good stead, and I'm not shocked if these things happen, because it does. So and people again don't realize that.
Yeah.
So it's not all glamorous.
No, it certainly is not. And I was just thinking at the weekend, I had a very busy week last week with Player of the Year, and I had 3 weddings over the weekend.
Yeah.
And yes, as part of weddings, that's lovely flower arranging, but really the guts of it was my ironing napkins at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
For the next day.
Totally.
Because, whether a napkin's creased or not affects everything for the bride.
And I mean, recently you did an event with us, and you were chatting to me. I was like, oh, I'll help Jill. I'll put a chair cover on. I put one on my back. I was like, geez, I put one chair cover on. I thought, you do hundreds of them. I don't know
thousands.
How you do it. Yeah, thousands.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we have a massive team, because expecting one person to do 500 a day is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
When somebody comes to you with an idea for an event, what do you wish they knew? Because people have some really crazy ideas. And whilst I always say, kind of tongue-in-cheek, anything's possible, we know that it's not really. So I suppose advice for somebody coming to you with an event idea, what should they do? What should they not do?
I think probably the 2 main things that I would always say is, especially if you are more than one person, set your roles and responsibilities. A lot of the events I've seen that maybe haven't been successful or been hard to manage because they've maybe got a committee or a team and they're all kind of muddled doing different things, and they haven't clearly said, right, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I guess, deadlines. It's difficult because, a client has deadlines, guests have deadlines, the venue has deadlines. And with the venue, the operations team have deadlines. They've got to set the rooms up. The catering team have deadlines for, ordering their food. And then for final numbers, we say 10 days out, which, I guess some clients find that quite difficult. It's because we also have to book the staff for those numbers. And we appreciate things change, but asking what your clear deadlines at the start. Is there any leeway on the, what's the final? It's kind of the 2 things I would say.
And is there anything in particular that people should do that makes it amazing? So my thing is, of all the events that I do, I hate doing something that somebody's seen before, somebody's had before, a bit like a speaker or a band. And I know that it frustrates my husband a lot because I'm obsessive about it. And I've probably been ratting on about my 50th next year. But I mean, you can just imagine. So it's just going to be amazing. But that applies to everything that I've done.
Yeah.
Is that really annoying? People who want to continually strive for something unique? I mean,
no, I don't think so. And I think events do have to be unique. There's so much competition now. We've talked about it before charity events. There's so many different balls, and I think you have to do something a little bit different. So I guess, advice would be speaking to the venue, and we do so many different types of events. What do we think works? Asking guests that go to them, it's always good to get feedback afterwards. So I don't think it's unrealistic to strive for perfection in something different. And I, think about the audience that are coming to you as well. We do dinners where, we've got a big group of farmers, for example, and what they want is completely different to HR awards. It's maybe a lot of younger people. People, I guess a lot of people want now in events is they want that thing to be able to share on Instagram, that you want to get that content. So, you want that really good photo backdrop. But again, that maybe doesn't work for another demographic. So it's really thinking about what do those people want.
So I suppose kind of following up from that, how much difference do you think decor makes to, let's say, a dinner dance or a charity event? Because obviously I'm going to say it absolutely does, because that's my business. But, we talk a lot about the immersiveness of an event, and particularly if it's got a defined theme. I think it makes a huge difference. And what I probably didn't appreciate until the last few years is how much value people feel when they're attending as a guest. You know, they've parted usually with not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah.
And if they walk in and they can see that somebody's really cared about it and thought about it, they feel more valued. But I mean, is that real or?
No, I mean 100%. I've seen the things you've done, and I've always got respect for the things you do. I mean, they're amazing. And you always take a theme that somebody wants, and you add your own tweak to it and go further from what they kind of maybe envision. So yeah, I think it's totally important to have different furniture or chair covers or table centers that does help make it. So I think event organizers have to think about that from the very start. I think we're quite lucky as well at the venue that we do have amazing state-of-the-art lighting. That makes a huge effect and helps you as well in your creations too, because we can change the colours and can change throughout the event and things like that, and haze. And I appreciate for event organizers as well, it's an expense.
It is.
And they have to think about, what's the most important things. Is it the table centres? Is it the chair covers? So yeah, and I people do things themselves as well, and it can be amazing. And I think a big part of it as well is like sustainability, and it's a huge part, I guess, of the events industry now, and how we move forward. And you're fantastic in that you've got your items, and you can reuse them. And whereas sometimes clients will buy things, they'll maybe use them once, and they'll sit in a cupboard for years and years, and it's not actually been worth the money. So yeah, I mean, I always put people in touch with you.
Well, I mean, that isn't why I asked that question, but touching on the sustainabilty piece. So I used to, I mean, I talk constantly about my environmental conference, but 2019, I had that conference at TEGA, and we had a business breakfast, and one of the speakers at the business breakfast was talking about how effectively the space is net zero because you've got the biogas digesters out the back. So one thing that I'm looking at moving forward is we've got this I'm working with Carbon Zero. And we can calculate effectively your carbon footprint from an event. Yeah. So it's always perfect if people have their event at TEGA because the whole venue footprint is effectively already zero. Yeah. But one of the things is, reusing and hiring equipment and props. Yeah. So what we find with weddings, I mean, we don't do an awful lot of weddings these days, but there's a massive push for DIY weddings.
Yes.
And unfortunately, people don't appreciate how things that they may or may not buy on Vinted or Facebook Marketplace actually translate into real life.
Totally.
So we get a call, that hasn't worked. I'm like, well, it won't have. Yeah. So actually hiring things rather than buying them is a massive tick for sustainability.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, mention about the sustainability of the venue. It's like a huge, I guess, selling point for a venue. And it has to be the way forward for events. I read a statistic recently that the events industry, I guess, encompassing everything, festivals as well. Yeah. We produce about 100,000 tons of waste a year, which I mean is just like crazy.
Unfathomable.
We're huge polluters, and I think like 87% of that goes to landfill. And I see that at events, and I do think those, having been at the venue for like nearly 5 years, I've seen a huge change in that. And we work with a local company in Aberdeen that tracks our waste and recycle as much as possible. And clients are a lot more aware of that now and are making changes to that. But again, we do loads of random things that people aren't aware of. Like last week, Ariane Duncan, who's our association's sales executive. She's really big on the sustainability piece for the venue and is always doing more to enhance it. And last week she was visiting a wormery. I mean, thinking about things that we can get for the venue and bee hotels and stuff like that. So yeah, we're doing things in the background all the time because we want it to be the most sustainable venue that it can be. So.
My biggest thing is single-use carpets.
Yes.
And my other bugbear is bottles of still water.
Yes. Our still water is now glass bottles. And exhibition carpets, I don't think we see as much of it.
No, you
previously. Because it is an expense. And it does make a difference. So I
love
does
make a huge difference.
Carpet.
Yes.
But we now work with a local charity that takes a lot of the carpet. The carpet that's used is not the best quality. It's so thin, this carpet. And sometimes it can't be reused and it will be put to recycling. But sometimes if it's good enough, we'll give it to charities. They'll clean it and use it.
So, I mean, knowing what how that carpet's made, actually a lot of it gets shredded and put into the internals of mattresses and things like that. Because obviously I do quite a lot a waste in mine with an environmental hat on. So just before we wrap up, what have you got coming up?
I've got quite varied few months coming up. I've got a few balls, a student ball, an energy ball, got a couple of different conferences, like exhibitions, one called VTech, which is a conference of like E. coli, and one which is around, I guess, the nutrition of like children. I guess more from an entertainment point of view, I've got Andre Roux.
Oh yeah.
And Gladiators, which are kind of like totally different.
A lot of people are getting excited about
really
Gladiators.
Excited. So, and they're with us for like a substantial amount of time. Yeah. We have like rehearsals before and set up, and then like 2 days of events. So that would be really good, something a little different. So every day is so different, which is great, and you just don't know what you're coming into sometimes.
No, every day is a school day.
Absolutely.
How can people find out more? How can they get in touch with you?
On LinkedIn probably is the best thing. And I'm always like open to people asking me questions, and people want to get involved in events. You know, one thing when I started was I had a really good network of people that I, could go to for questions or work. And I'm always happy for people to ask me things if they want to get involved. And, we take on interns and volunteers and things because it's the next generation. Sure. And we want people to get involved in events.
And if people are thinking about having an event at Tekka, can you do a show around? Can they see? Because I don't think people appreciate the scale and the scope of all the different event spaces that you have.
Totally, yeah. I think people just drive past it and think, it's one arena.
It's just for concerts, but it's not.
9+ meeting rooms. We've got kind of 2 larger conference spaces, which can make it small spaces, and 2 smaller conference rooms as well. So we do like tours if anybody wants to come in if they're thinking about an event. And usually that sales team at the start, but we can get involved as well, and people want to discuss how they can make it work.
Brilliant.